Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Join me on this episode is Mike Werner again. Mike, how you doing, my friend?
2 days in a row. What are we doing?
I know. It's crazy. Just, one after another. Had someone who was supposed to record the Twins preview with me that canceled, and so you graciously stepped up and jumped in. So as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Werner FWFB. Give us those 5-star reviews. Keep those coming. Really, really appreciate it. Get yourself entered in to win a free RotoWare shirt every month until the start of the season. So appreciate all those 20 of you that have given us 5-star reviews this month. It really, really helps us out. Just want to say, if you give us a 5-star review on Spotify, make sure you screenshot it and send it to me either via email, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or DM it to me on Twitter. So that way I make sure I have it, because it doesn't show up who left the review over on Spotify. So with that, we're just going to jump right into these Minnesota Twins. Start off with Christian Vazquez, who's going to be the catcher there. Which honestly surprised me a little bit. I completely missed the news that Christian Vazquez signed in Minnesota. What are your thoughts on Vazquez as the kind of main catcher there?
I mean, it's all right. I mean, catcher in general is kind of, you have a tier of, catcher ones that you'll feel really good about, and then it's going to be a long list of catcher twos that may have some value for short stints of time. I think Vazquez is kind of fitting the bill of, in between the two, not necessarily somebody you're going to, count on as a catcher one, but, somebody that probably will, play 3/4 of the year. I'd say, maybe 60% of the playing time behind the plate. That'll net him, like 450 plate appearances, maybe 500, maybe gets close to double-digit home runs, which he hasn't done actually since 2019, but the power's good enough to hit it, somewhere between 7 to 10 home runs, hit about 260 to 280 depending on the year. But he's kind of is what he is at this point. He's 32. I don't see an uptick in production by any means. I mean, the Twins do score runs, so you could see a little bit of increased run production. His career high is 66, and last year he scored 41, so maybe a little bit in run production and RBI, but overall, I'd say like maybe a top 12 to 14 option, maybe a little bit, give or take some, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fine option where he's going. He's going as the number 17 catcher off the board around pick 248 on NFBC since Christmas in draft champions leagues. Like, he's a perfect catcher too, because he doesn't hurt you, right? Like, he's not really helping you in any category, but he doesn't have like that god-awful batting average. He'll, maybe get to double-digit home runs, maybe not, since Minnesota's not like the best of hitting environments necessarily, but like he's fine. Like, it's a boring option. It's kind of a fallback option if you don't really get like one of the more flashier options as your C2. So yeah, whatever. Do you care about Ryan Jeffers at all?
He showed some stints last year that were pretty helpful for fantasy in general. I mean, he had, had 1 month where he hit 320 with a couple of home runs. He shows like, flashes here and there. He's only 26, so it's not like, there's, a long, he doesn't have a long track record of success or anything, but I'd say in a pinch in AL only formats, just keep an eye on him in case he, subs in for Vazquez if he gets injured or anything of that nature. And, outside of that, nah.
All right, let's move on into the infield. Let's talk about Luis Arraez, who's projected right now to be their first baseman. I think he's probably going to do a lot of what he has done in the past, which is play a lot of different positions. He's multi-positional eligible. He is really empty batting average, so he did show a little spike in power. Any interest in Arraez this year?
Not really. I mean, I like the potential versatility. He did play like 65 games at first base last year. He had 65 at bats. So I don't know if I'm reading that right, but I just don't see a lot of speed, even though he's kind of quick and, has a decent speed score. I just don't really see a lot of stolen base output in the future. High contact rate. He's going to, have a good batting average and everything, but just not a lot of pop, not a lot of speed, just kind of an empty batting average, I think is pretty apt, like you said.
Yeah, I'm always kind of looking for the next Luis Arraez. I don't want to really pay for last year's Luis Arraez, right? Like, you know, I mean, he's fine if you need help with your batting average, and in DCs he's nice because he gives you multi-position eligibility, but he's just boring. Like, it's just boring, unfortunately. Jorge Polanco is coming off kind of a down year, missed time due to injury. Do we expect a bounce back?
I think a mild bounce back is in the cards. I don't think we'll see a 30+ home run campaign like we did in 2021. But I do think we'll see, a bounce back in batting average for sure. He's never somebody that's, been hitting in the 235 range. And, if you look at, his expected rates, it actually was fair based on his underlying metrics and everything. But, power wise, I think that will come back. He was dealing with some injuries last year. And overall, going at about 160 in drafts, I think that that's pretty fair. Based on what he's done in the past. He's, coming into his age 29 season. I think he'll be, a serviceable, top 120-ish player, which, gives you a little bit of value based on where he's going right now, at least.
Yeah, I mean, 2021 is clearly an aberration for Polanco, where he hit 31 or 33 home runs. He's probably more like a low 20s guy with some chip and stolen bases, and probably an average that doesn't kill you in the 250-ish range. My only issue with Polanco is they've got other guys who are going to start to emerge from the minor leagues at some point. And if he gets injured again, or if he just struggles, then he could lose playing time pretty easily, especially now that they've got Correa back. He doesn't have
Are we sure?
we are sure this time. We'll get there in a second. So he's probably not going to be on a lot of my teams just because I don't think the ceiling is particularly high, because I don't believe in that 2021 power output. And I think there is a pretty low floor if he remains hurt, or if he ends up losing playing time just because he's not very good. So I think you want to be careful about drafting a guy like Polanco.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be somebody that I own. And I also could see him actually slipping in drafts. I don't think his value will go higher.
No, he's going to be he's pretty affordable, which is nice. Carlos Correa does officially sign in Minnesota after flirting and trying to get signed everywhere else. Are you drafting him in fantasy this year, though?
I haven't drafted Correa on a team. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. I mean, I think he did show some promise in some ways. I mean, it's just all kind of, small glimpses of promise in terms of like, contact rate and, short spans. And I mean, overall, I think that there's potentially 30 home runs if he stays, relatively healthy all year and hitting in the Twins lineup that I actually do like overall. I think there will be some good counting stats. So him going in the top 120, I don't think is egregious or anything. I likely won't have him though, just because I've never really been a Correa guy. Overall, I just feel like there's much better options in, different spots. And I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, it's kind of the same old with him. If I can get 30 home runs from other spots and kind of fill in the counting stats elsewhere as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, like that power is not great for power to begin with, or that park's not very great for power to begin with. Yeah. And I don't think he's any more along like a 30 home run hitter. I think he's probably like a low to mid 20s guy. That being said, when he plays, he's a good player, not a great player, but a good player. He's going to play a lot as long as he's healthy. The question is, there is a big question on that health, obviously, considering he had 2 contracts voided for medical reasons. I do think he's a little bit underrated in the market, though. Like, I think he's going in behind guys that he's probably better than, and that just they have better, like, flashier name value because they're younger. I think, like, Jeremy Pena is a really good example of someone going ahead of him that probably shouldn't be. So I don't know that I'm going to have very much Carlos Correa this year, but unlike other years where he was going, in the top 100 and top, 60, I won't be fading him necessarily this year. He's definitely kind of a fallback option and represents kind of one of the last guys at the shortstop position that I would be okay with having as my shortstop. So, Jose Miranda is a guy that I've kind of gone back and forth on. I really like the baseline skills, but the price seemed like it was going to get too high, but now it seemed to have cooled off a little bit. Where are you at on Jose Miranda?
I'm a fan of Miranda, however you want to say it. I think it's going to take some time. I will say that, he hit, double digit home runs last year. He had a really long sample. I mean, he pretty much was up from May on. So, once you hit the second half though, I mean, there was, he hit almost 290. His contact rate was, 80%, which for a rookie coming up is stellar. His walk rate went up as the year went on. His hard hit rate went up as the year went on as well. There was some, his XBX and, which is essentially ISO, kind of did go down in the second half. So you could see the power start to wane a little bit. And, I mean, I don't love the fact that he hit 9 home runs in the second half, but I do think that there is upside for more. I think, full season this year, second year under his belt, you could see like 22 to 25 home runs. Maybe I would baseline project him for probably like 19 to 20. But good counting stats as well. I love the fact that he makes contact. I love the fact that he has his line drive rate went up to almost 25% in the second half last year. He just has a consistent hit tool that he flashed already in a pretty large sample size his rookie season. So I'm pretty on board with him, and he's going in the top like 160-ish range. I don't think that's too much. I would prefer if it was a little bit lower because there's third baseman around him that. Like Brian Hayes, for instance, I would take, who's going 10 picks later, various other options that I don't want to go 20 extra minutes on. But overall, I mean, I'm a fan of Miranda.
Yeah, I am too. I actually just took him and drafted him currently in. Brian Hayes is still on the board, and I do have Hayes ranked higher, but what the team needed was batting average, and I can get batting average, I think, a lot easier from Miranda than I can from Hayes, even though I do like Hayes, especially with the speed upside. I think he's really, really good. Like, I don't think the ceiling is extremely high, while I do think there is more pop in that bat. He's got to raise that launch angle in order to be able to unlock that, and I just don't know if that's going to be a step he takes in 2023. So if you like kind of low to mid 20s home runs and a 270-ish batting average, I think he's a pretty fine pick where he goes. Let's talk about kind of the black sheep of the Twins in many ways. Alex Kirilloff has been kind of a prospector's fantasy wet dream for quite a while, and he's done nothing but hit in the minor leagues. Unfortunately, all he's done in the major leagues is sucked and be injured. Is this the year that Alex Kirilloff finally kind of comes into his own?
I mean, I definitely will pay the price to see. Right now he's not even being drafted in most 15-team formats, maybe as a dart throw. Really the main thing is health. I mean, he tore a ligament in his right wrist in 2021, and then he had inflammation in that same wrist twice last year in 2022. So, I mean, really, we haven't seen him. Pretty much his whole entire major league sample from 2021 on is mired by nothing but a wrist injury that really has never been able to get completely right. So I kind of think that you can take his major league sample and just kind of throw it out based on that. Overall, yes, I'm going to take, a few stabs at him because the upside is significant. And I think that, if there's a scenario where he does play the full year or close to the full year in the majors and he remains healthy, then you're looking at a guy that, does possess a significant amount of upside. I mean, I think that he's, one of the better prospects, or was one of the better prospects in baseball. He was like, a top 50 guy for a while. I've always been a fan of Kirilloff's. I haven't been a fan since he's been brought up because he cost way too much in FAB when he did come up, and I was kind of fading that at the time. And then, last year going into the year, I just wasn't really wanting to invest. This year, though, I think it's kind of the prime position to invest. Unfortunately, it's because of him being sidelined for the most part. But I think you could see a scenario where he ends up hitting like 25 home runs and, steals double-digit bags and has, fairly good batting average as well if things got to play right. And again, he costs, a top, barely a top 500 pick. I'm absolutely going to invest on that. So,
yeah, I'm not. He's not.
Why?
Yeah. One,
he's
not free. He's going around pick
free-ish.
300, around pick 300 or so.
Since when?
Since 324 since Christmas in NFBC draft.
That's different then. If he's going up there, then that's different.
Now in your shallow formats, in your 10-team leagues, that is free, right? And that it makes sense. However, You need to make sure you're playing in the league with IL spots because he's missed so much time and you cannot bank on him for a ton of plate appearances. There is no speed. He's never stolen double-digit bases in any minor league stop. So
there's a little bit of speed. I wouldn't say there's no speed.
There's no speed. There's absolutely no speed. He's like a 30 runner. Like he is not fast at all. And considering all of his wrist injuries, do you think they want him sliding head first into bags and shit? No, they're not. No, he's not going to steal
pop it back into place. Who knows?
He might. Yeah, exactly. He might steal a bag or two. So you're looking at a guy with no speed, a huge injury profile. Now, he could hit for average. Like, he could hit 280 with 25, 30 home runs if he got 600 plate appearances. The problem is he's not getting 600 plate appearances. Even if he's healthy, he's not getting 600 plate appearances. So
I don't think he's going to hit 30 home runs this year at all. I mean, even if he plays the full year, I think it's going to take time from a plate approach perspective. That's what I've always kind of been, most wanting is him to get a significant sample just to, kind of get his, bearings a bit. But I mean, I do think that he could hit, close to 280-ish if he kind of, gets enough plate appearances. I'm just shocked that I didn't, obviously that changes things with the ADP, but I mean, if people are paying a top 3 something pick, then that definitely, fades me off. It literally says 460. So I'm shocked that it went up that much from a couple months on.
Have you sorted it by just draft champions?
No, I haven't. So that's why I see a difference.
So that includes the gladiator leagues where you have no bench, you have to play everybody you draft, and so I'm sure he went undrafted in a number of those leagues because of his injury profile. Other infielders, Nick Gordon should be playing a fairly decent sized role. Are you interested in him?
Not fan. I mean, I can go on, but I'm just, I mean, I guess for AF only formats, there's like some, value that can be had or whatever. And he did play a significant amount last year. I just pretty much, kind of fallen out of, thinking that he could be, anything like, he almost kind of reminds me of like Tim Beckham in a way where, kind of low walk rate profile, not the best plate skills, struggles with contact, has, a fair amount of speed, but I don't think will ever be somebody that, has a good enough success rate and gets on base enough to be able to get into like the 25, 30 stolen base range. I do think he made some substantial improvements in powers to where I think 15 home runs is attainable for him, which I'd never, I wasn't really on board with that at any point, but I do think that's a possibility. With that said, if I'm doing like a projection for this year, I think, you'd be in a good place if he, hits, 8 to 11 home runs with, somewhere around double-digit steals, hopefully, depending on how, his batting average goes, and probably like more of like a 250, 260 hitter, which again is nothing. I mean, I'm not saying I'm completely not interested, but mainly AL only formats and that, type of scenario.
I think he lost a lot of value when Correa re-signed. I mean, I think he was looking at probably an everyday role one before Correa came back, and now that Correa's back.
But Correa's got a, I mean,
Correa's got injury history, and Polanco's got an injury history, and Kirilloff's got an injury history. So, like, he could definitely find himself to get back to like 400 plus plate appearances. I don't know that he's special enough in any particular category that he makes sense to be drafted. He's a guy you pick up off the waiver wire, honestly, in most formats.
I absolutely agree.
Kyle Farmer, do you care?
Not really.
All right, let's move into the outfield. Talk about Byron Buxton, who is an elite player per plate appearance, but it's all about the plate appearances. Are you drafting Byron Buxton?
Man, he's going just outside of the top 100 now. I need to see after draft champions though to make sure that I have this somewhat right instead of since October. Yeah, he's going like just outside the top 100. I'm interested there. I'm interested there because when he's on the field, as long as you can, and it also depends on the format, right? Like if you're in a shallower format, then absolutely. I mean, you want to, grab him and just put him on your IL spot. But when it comes to it definitely would depend on the format. If you need that roster spot to play significant, the whole season and not worry about injuries as much, and you need to worry about injuries more, then, obviously he gets, a tick down or two in a value, scenario. But I mean, even last year, despite missing close to half the season, like 28 home runs and 6 steals. The batting average does kill you though at times. I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, I will buy at 110, pick 110 in a regular 15 team format. I absolutely will buy, because I think that the upside season, which could come this year, depending on, I mean, he has missed time every year since 2017. So we're talking like 6 straight years now, but I mean, I'd say if I'm going to project it, say he gets 520 plate appearances, which is like what, 65% of the year, I would say 30 home runs is definitely attainable, close to double-digit steals, probably a 250, 260 average, all the counting stats that come with that. That would be, Justin's, around the top 100 players, I would say.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, the shallower the format, the more likely I am to take a shot on him. But I think the price is pretty close to right at this point, because the upside, but there's probably only one player in Major League Baseball that's a bigger risk reward play, and that's Mondesi, right? And now you're getting Mondesi outside the top 200, but you have to take Buxton just outside the top 100. I don't know if it's a risk I'm going to take very often, but like I said, shallower formats, I'm for it. Max Kepler is a guy that I've always really liked. I always felt like there's a big breakout coming at some point. It hasn't really happened yet. We've seen glimpses of it. Where are you at on Max Kepler?
I'm still buying because, I think that the value has still, he really hasn't done that much the last couple of years here. He's kind of actually dropped off since, kind of having a little bit of a spike in 2019 and 2020. He's kind of actually fallen a little bit the last couple of years. So he's in a spot where, his value is pretty low at this point. And he's kind of like an afterthought to a lot of people. And I think that that's a mistake. He's somebody that I do think is going to play pretty much every day, right? I mean, I don't really see them swapping him out too much. So, I mean, last year he had some health issues. He had like COVID-19 issues, and then another right wrist issue. What the hell are they doing with their Twins players and the right wrist scenario? What the fuck's happening there? But I would hope this year he gets back to the 20 home run mark. I think he can and will if he plays a full season. The batting average is where it's really slipped. I mean, back in, 2018, 2019, he was making, close to 80% ish contact, and it's kind of dropped a little bit, at times. And then, last year it kind of ticked back up, but it came with just, still a 227 average. I mean, at some point your BABIP's your BABIP, what I mean? So he's probably, going to be close to a 240, 250 BABIP guy. And, despite having, hopefully a better year in contact, you might not see a better batting average here. So, I mean, all in all, I hope that, we see maybe a few more line drives and, higher exit velocity. Hopefully the risk was maybe to blame a little bit for the last couple of years in batting average. But I mean, he really has only hit 250 once in the last few seasons. So I guess the best case scenario is like double digit, close to 20 home runs like he did a couple years ago, maybe like a 250-ish batting average, and some kind of stats with it. And he did steal 10 bags in 2021 too, which is kind of odd. It's kind of odd profile in years. He's been inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think the talent is there, and we have to remember, like, this is a guy who didn't start playing baseball till like the end of high school because he was living.
He's 30 now, though. He's going to age 30 year. I mean, God, that's wild.
I do believe in the talent, and the defense is great, so it keeps him in the lineup even when he's struggling offensively. The Twins have talked about trading him, so maybe he needs a new location, and a better park would be really nice. So he's a guy in deeper formats. I'm totally happy to get as kind of a bench option. And kind of see if he can break out, or in shallower formats, he's obviously a waiver wire guy. Let's move over to. Oh, actually, let's talk about Joey Gallo real quick. Are you drafting Joey Gallo?
Not right now. I'm not. I mean, it's getting worse. So, I mean, for now, I'll keep an eye on him, but I can't at the moment.
I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, they banned the shift. One, they did not ban. They did not ban the shift. You just can't shift as extremely, and he's not good even when they're not shifting him. Let's it
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's getting worse too. I mean, there's people that are passable in contacts, like even if it's like 60 something percent, like, or whatever. But I mean, at this point, the book has been out on him, and now it's getting worse. I mean, last year, I don't think people realize like how bad he was at making contact. I mean, he always has been bad, but now the walk rate's starting to slip with it too. And I mean, we're already going too long on it. We need to see him actually like kind of figure it out a little bit from a batting average perspective. Like 200 would be okay.
Yeah. Let's move into starting pitching. Sonny Gray is gone from like kind of one of these just like really dependable guys to being a little bit less dependable. Are you drafting Sonny Gray?
No, I'm not. I worry about multiple things with him. I just don't think he's as effective as, a few years ago. Now, like his expected rate stats are still pretty solid. He's able to kind of maintain control. But I've done, the strikeout upside has started to wane here the last couple of years. The innings, he hasn't usurped 130 something innings, since 2019, and he only did that once since 2018. So I think the innings you're not really going to be able to buy. He hasn't had really a strong season, like a top 40-ish starting pitcher season since like 2019 as well. So you're kind of seeing a track record of him being like kind of a more of like a fifth, sixth starter in fantasy. And right now, I mean, I think his price isn't terrible at, just outside the top 200, if that's where he's still going to draft champion. Yeah, 215 area. I think that's okay, but I would be more intrigued with other options around there that have, just a higher upside in terms of strikeouts and honestly, innings as well.
Yeah, I hate, and I've always hated Sonny Gray mechanically speaking. And it just screamed to me the same kind of wonky mechanics that Tim Lincecum had, and we just saw Lincecum fall apart physically, and I'm just worried about that with Sonny Gray. And like you mentioned, he only threw like 119 innings last year. Previous year, threw 135 innings. I don't know that you can count on him for enough innings, even though when he's pitching, he's pretty good. Still, 3.08 ERA in those 119 innings with almost strikeout innings. That's great when they're on the mound, but it's really hard to roster guys like this when they're going to miss weeks and weeks at a time.
Well, yeah, and he's had injury issues every year for the last 3 seasons now, and he also had, it's going back to the lat muscle and, just stuff on the right side of his body. It's consistent every year, which tells me, like you said, like the mechanical piece with him is starting to kind of, catch up to him. And I mean, I just don't see his, he's about to, be in his age 33 season. I don't see him aging gracefully.
No, he's a little guy with bad mechanics. That's not usually a good sign once you get into your 30s. Joe Ryan is, was a popular quote unquote sleeper last year, and he's now just a popular pitcher this year. Are you in on Joe Ryan?
I've been a fan of Joe Ryan for a while now. There's a lot of, high end skills with him. I am excited for, potentially a full season of him being able to stay on the mound. I think that he's a potential breakout candidate, but I would kind of pump the brakes. I mean, he is going pretty high at this point. So at his current slot, I would say no, but I'm willing to trade for him in leagues that you can. And I'm definitely willing to kind of maybe, hope for the best going into next year. I'm willing to miss the boat if this is the breakout season and wait one more year. He did throw almost 30 starts last season, but that was only 150 innings. And while there was some substantial gains in certain areas, there was also some inconsistency as well. And there's some home run issues. So I mean, overall, I think he's like a starting pitcher, like 5-ish, 4 maybe, and I mean he's being drafted as like more of a 3. So I'm willing to wait, but I am a big fan. I think that there's potentially starting pitcher 2-3 upside, maybe a year later, but I'll be willing to miss the boat this year.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm just not as big a fan as the market is. Like I like what he does, and it is fantastic outfield defense with Buxton and Gallo and Kepler, which is good because he does have a high fly ball rate. I just worry that like MLB is going to go back to a live ball this year, after they saw what it did for Aaron Judge, and he's just going to get murdered if that happens. I'm staying away. I just don't feel like the price is just a bit higher than his actual value is, unfortunately. Do you care about Kenta Maeda this year coming off of Tommy John?
I don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't either.
It's not going to be enough innings. And even if it is like 60, 70 innings, like history has shown us that it's not something that we can really count on, especially when you're in like more serious leagues and such. So, yeah. It
could be more innings just because he's in a contract year. And so the Twins don't have anything like tied to him. And after this year, they can just kind of make him go out and throw as many innings as he wants. And but I just never draft guys coming off of Tommy John. It's just kind of a hard and fast rule. So, all right. What about Bailey Ober? He's another guy that was a trendy sleeper last year. just like Joe Ryan. However, injuries cost him pretty much the majority of the season. Only made 11 starts through 56 innings. It was a very good 56 innings. Are you drafting Bailey Ober?
He got pushed up from last year too, I believe. I mean, I think last year he was going as like close to a top 300 pick, and now he's, in the 270, 260 range. It's not egregious, but I am a fan of Ober. I was a fan of Ober going into last year. I do think that we're going to see some regression from a start-to-start basis. I mean, he had 2.01 ERA in the second half last year. I think people are just kind of remembering, a couple starts in September and, saying, oh, yeah, he was really strong. And it's like kind of leaking into the market going into this season. With that said, it was legitimately strong, a few starts at the end of the year. And he showed a lot of promise, the same amount of promise that he did, the year prior that, made him a potential breakout going into 2022. I think that, just like, anything, he needs to hit the innings mark. I don't know how comfortable the Twins will be with giving him 170 innings this season after he pitched only 56 in the majors in 2022. So, I mean, I would say 120-ish innings is probably, that's a fair projection, maybe 140 if you're being really kind of optimistic about things. And I think if he does that, he'll probably be, 3.8 to 4 ERA guy with, probably slightly below league average strikeouts, a decent walk rate, some, good, underlying metrics with it. But I don't want him at that cost. I want him to go. I would prefer if he was a little cheaper.
I actually like him just fine at the cost. I think you do have to prepare for him only to get like 130 innings because they're not going to push him.
Why would they?
You might even be surprised to see him get past like 110 or 120. But I really like the skill set. He does a really good job of eliciting, weak contact. Again, he's a fly ball pitcher, but it's a good park to pitch in, and you have that great outfield defense. I actually like Ober a lot more because of the cost than a guy like Joe Ryan. So I think he can beat Joe Ryan-esque, in probably a fewer innings, but at a much cheaper price. So like I don't mind the price right now. I do wish it was cheaper, but I'm totally fine with it. I like Bailey Ober. He's the guy that I've been targeting already in early drafts. Who's the closer there? Or do you think it is Jorge Lopez again? Do you think it's Jhoan Duran? Who's the closer?
We did miss Tyler Mahle, just so you know.
Oh, let's do Tyler Mahle. Tyler Mahle is a guy I really, really like, or have really, really liked in the past. I'm a little afraid because he finished the year injured, and so I've been avoiding him in early drafts. What are you doing with Tyler Mahle?
I'm actually going the opposite with him. And I mean, I think that the reason that some of his stuff slipped was because of injury in the second half in 2022. I'm a fan of Mahle. I think, and the reason I'm a fan is because, he does a lot of what, some of these mid-tier starters do, but his, cost is, 320-ish now. And Ober, if you're, comparing other guys, I mean, I don't mind Ober's cost. It's probably something though, where I would be more comfortable even taking Mahle and waiting, 50 picks or whatever, versus taking Ober, because I think that the strike upside is higher with Mahle. And I think that the overall, rate stats may end up being close to the same. He was a sub 3.75 ERA guy for a couple of years straight prior to last season. And in the second half last year, his skills got better as the season went on, despite him being injured. We saw some, slight dips in velocity and swing and strike rate and strikeout rate overall. But I also think you could attribute that to injury. And we saw, a slip in home run rate as well. I think that he could get right this season and be kind of closer to the guy he was, the 2 years prior to 2022, which again was, really serviceable starter. I mean, borderline top 50 guy. So, I mean, if he gets to the 160 innings pitch mark, which, he hit 180 in 2021, then I legit think you're talking about a borderline top 50 guy. So,
yeah, I'm a big fan of Mahle from just like straight skills perspective, and I was really looking forward to him like getting out of Cincinnati, away from that Great American Ballpark where he gives up so many home runs. Unfortunately for him, he just, got hurt. And so I'm kind of throwing out a lot of 2022 for him as long as he's healthy coming into 2023. So I'm probably not going to draft him until I see him in spring. But if he's healthy in spring, he's going to be on a lot of my teams in March.
Yeah.
All right. Jhoan Duran or Jorge Lopez?
I want Duran. I just am a big fan of his skill set, and I was a big fan going into last year as well. And I mean, he's just, a 19% swing strike rate is just ludicrous. And I mean, he had a 27% K to walk rate overall. I mean, his expected ERA was close to his actual ERA, which was, 1.86. It was a 2.17 expected ERA. Lopez, I mean, I admire what he did last season. But it's just, when you look at somebody's like track record and, there's an obvious, kind of outlier here. I feel like Lopez may not go back to where he was, the years prior when he was like mixing in starting pitching with all that. But I mean, Duran is the obvious better pitcher to me, at least. And, does that net more saves? It kind of depends on how the Twins want to use them. I would draft Duran higher, and it looks like, that people are, by a significant margin. But, I would take Lopez too if you think that, the Twins potentially use him in a save capacity, because that's, that definitely is possible as well. And he did convert a high, number of his save chances as well. So, I mean, I guess I'm into a degree on both of them. I definitely prefer Duran. And I think that he could be like an elite, like top 5 level closer. Potentially, if all things played right. But I'd say Duran, but I am in on both of them to for various reasons.
Yeah, I mean, Duran's obviously the more talented pitcher. The problem is the Twins like to use him in like that multi-inning role or high leverage role, and so I think Lopez is going to get the lion's share of the saves. So if you're just looking for saves, then I think you go Lopez. And if you're looking for upside or the next man up, it's Duran for sure. I mean, Duran is an amazing reliever, and he can be really, really helpful as kind of like a third, relief pitcher on your roster to kind of help with strikeouts and your ratios and things like that. But I think Lopez probably leads his team in saves, at least early on. So,
well, I think that there's a fair chance that he, gets 80 to 90% of the save chances. I think Duran will provide value in other ways, but they also have Michael Fulmer and Pagan still rolling around in here. So, I mean, you never know what kind of...
I didn't even see they added Michael Fulmer.
Yeah, you don't know what kind of shenanigans they could pull, especially if like Lopez gets injured. It may not be a scenario where Duran actually gets to slot into the closer role. It may end up being like Fulmer actually slots in or whatever. So
when did they sign Fulmer?
You
sure?
I'm looking at the team page right now. I mean, unless it's a typo, I guess I'll have to look up what the transaction was, but let me see.
Yeah, because he's not on roster resource.
That's weird.
So, and usually they're
look on HQ's playing time thing. So, I mean, I guess there's a chance that they messed that up.
Yeah.
He's on the Twins on Roto World. Oh, they signed or acquired Fulmer from the Tigers for Sawyer Gibson Long on August 2nd.
Well, yeah, but now Fulmer's a free agent. So, that was a deal, at the trade deadline last year. But
my apologies.
So he's a free agent. So he'd be a good pickup for them. But
sorry about that, y'all.
No worries. Any prospects or anything like that you're looking at as potentially impactful?
Obviously Royce
Lewis. Royce Lewis isn't going to play baseball until June.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Honestly, no, not for the Twins. No. I mean, I could go into some guys I like. I mean, I am a fan of Julian, but for these purposes, no.
Julian is like strictly deep OBP leagues, and obviously Dynasty. Austin Martin, I think he'll be up at some point, but probably late in the season. So redraft leagues probably won't have to worry about it.
No, yeah. I mean, he maybe is a fab pickup later. That's that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least. Like, I just don't know if it'll matter much for the regular season. All
right. Mike, remind everybody where you reached and plug whatever you don't have going on, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I'm just doing nothing. At Mike Werner, FWFB. Like I said on the Rays show, I'm semi-retired from content stuff, but I do love podcasting. I obviously love seeing you. So I just haven't been writing as much, full-time job, multiple kids, it's a lot.
I'm going to rope you into a regular podcast during the season.
I'm down to do that for sure. The writing stuff is where it just took a lot of time. So,
We'll get you back behind the mic more regularly. You can reach me on Twitter at @JustMason_FWFB. Email me the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. I'm writing daily at Fangraphs, doing these 30 team previews in 30 days on the Sleeper on the Bus podcast, TGFBI podcast. Speaking of TGFBI, you have till the end of the month to sign up. I just set the draft dates today. So the drafts for TGFBI will begin in late February 27th. So get in, sign up over at TGFBI.com. If you don't qualify for TGFBI, you want to try to win your way in, you can win your way in via the satellite league. So sign up over at TGFBI.com as well for those. For Mike, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball offseason.